60 grand US dollars for that painting. Yeah, I know it's big. I could see it. My only point is it probably took longer to get through the door and hang than it did to make it. I mean, I can make that. I'm a painter. I can make that hungover. And you said this guy is a professional? I'm part-time and he's a professional. No, I'm not a hater. I'm just taking notes. Just taking notes. Welcome back, artists. I'm Garrett and this is GB Brush. Today's topic: why is abstract art so popular and so successful? There's a lot to talk about here. We're going to be going over the pros and the cons, as well as my personal background with abstract art, and I'm going to be showing you guys a time lapse of one of my abstract paintings. Disclaimer: I am not an abstract painter, so this is me out of my element. You might have noticed I set up my kind of home studio much more than the last video. Got some paintings on the wall, and there's a big space here because I've also been hard at work on a new painting. Let's dive into my case for abstract art. Through the 1800s, the invention of the camera became more widely accessible and popular. No longer were highly talented painters and illustrators necessary to capture realism. This, of course, had profound changes to the way people started to use, create, and think about art. Highly religious, historically inspired works from the later years of the Renaissance, they had already been long out of fashion. Regular, though mostly still wealthy, people were looking to purchase artistic works more relatable to the times. Towards the end of the decade, many art movements in Europe had already become popular in taking recognizable objects and scenes and showing them in new non-realistic ways, abstract ways. Impressionist painters like Claude Monet famously leaned heavily into expressive brushwork and vibrant colors. Art Nouveau painters like, I'm going to read it here, Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec. I just know him as Lautrec. I'll put the spelling at the bottom. He took inspiration from Japanese artistic styles and painted with more colorful but flat imagery. These new ways to create art opened the door for further abstraction in the early 20th century. The Cubist movement, for example, aimed at capturing objects and figures from multiple points of perspective. At times, the resulting images were so abstract that the subjects were hard to determine. Onlookers were invited to try to discern the image or even bring their own interpretations to the image. This was revolutionary, so I'm told. I mean, I wasn't there, so I don't know for sure. When boiled down, art now falls into two general categories: representational art, art with recognizable subjects like still lifes, portraits, landscapes, and so on, and non-representational art. Art that is not meant to be anything specific. Non-representational paintings can be an emotion, an atmosphere, an expression, or just an empty white canvas. Anyways, post-World War II, the stage was set for the rapid success of movements like Abstract Expressionism. It wasn't until the late 40s that Jackson Pollock, for example, made his first famous drip paintings. Mark Rothko started his famous color-filled rectangle paintings in 1949. It can be argued that from the 1950s until even present day, the art world has been dominated by abstract art. Whether done well or poorly, abstraction is indeed here for good reasons, and it's here to stay. Now, like I said, I wasn't personally interested in abstract painting when I was younger, like in high school. I always thought that it was simple, it didn't require that much skill, and I admired the talent required to create representational art. This started to change when I took an oil painting class, because while I learned many traditional oil painting techniques and styles that I use today, I did for the class final have to create my first abstract expressionist painting. This is the painting that I actually did way back in 2009. I think crazy gas prices might have been the inspiration. Maybe people back in America right now can relate. Let's roll the time lapse on my new digital work. And let's see if we could boil down what makes abstract art so successful. In a typical representational painting, there are several tools at your disposal for creating a work that you need to juggle or consider. Things like subjects. And for these things that exist in the real world, you can use reference images to help a lot, or you can use your imagination, and that's my favorite, but it's going to require a lot of practice and training to do well. The next thing, anatomy. If you're showing people, figures, or animals, you need to consider lighting, perspective drawing or painting, color theory, form, defining edges, brushwork, lines, marks, narrative, if you want to tell a story through the painting, with imagery. Composition, how are the elements organized in the painting to be pleasing and to draw the eye in? And even design. If you're creating new objects or new costumes and stuff, new buildings, you need to bring some design skills into the mix. Now, mastering the use of most of these elements, or all of them, to accomplish a painting takes a lot of work and developed skill. That's what I thought made a great painting. I thought abstract art was just an excuse to throw all of this noble and difficult challenges out in favor of making something easier. But am I being fair? Does abstract expressionist art really throw out all of these challenges? Real quick reminder, smash the like button if you can, helps me out. Back to the video. Well, you're throwing out things like subjects entirely, and therefore also the need to master things like anatomy, lighting, and perspective. You're also not going to need to carefully construct a narrative or design anything. But you're still left with color theory, or lack of color, if you're doing gray, black and white and gray. Still left with composition, and you're still left with, most importantly, form. You also have a new challenge, the challenge of not painting anything specific. And this could actually be rather tricky. Without helping it, we often think in terms of subjects. You have to actually unlearn a lot, and many abstract artists adopt a playful mess-making strategy to at least get started. In this digital work I'm showing you here, I simply started making random lines and shapes with random colors and brushes and brush marks to help me just fill the canvas. Once the process begins, you start to see what's working and what's not working. And that's what's so surprising when you try this process, is you find that many random marks and colors actually don't work together. And therefore you start building and refining in almost an instinctual way. You realize that there is kind of a method to this madness, and the form of your marks do take time to manage and control and master. Color theory. It's a huge subject to properly study and to understand, and it can be quite technical. In my first abstract painting, the one back from 2009, it took my professor leaning in and hinting that I needed to use a lot of white to balance the oversaturated colors. Now back to this digital work, I knew from the beginning that I wanted to use many colors, but having now studied color theory, good job Garrett, I knew that I would need to desaturate my colors to help them kind of vibe together. The dominant color of this work is actually gray. Also within this process, you still need to consider composition. There are principles of composition playing out even in the most bizarre abstract paintings, and they take trial and error and study to understand. I wanted this composition to be layered and chaotic, but still well balanced. I place my lines more carefully at the ends of the canvas to keep the viewer comfortably moving around the painting and not just lead them to a specific feature. Last, you have to consider form. If all the marks and lines were the same, the image could start to look a little boring. In this work, I tried to mix up my marks. Some color is flat, some lines are crisp, some shapes are defined, but some colors also start to blend in a controlled gradation, and some colors blend with like a spontaneous, I hope I'm saying that right, they blend in a spontaneously. Ugh. Figure that out later in post. Of course, this is just a way that I was able to create an abstract painting. Many other abstract painters have a totally different process. Some of them are pretty out there, to say the least. But Garrett, if you enjoy abstract art so much, why aren't you an abstract painter? Great point. Well, let's go over some pros and cons to the genre. Pros. Abstract art can be fun and still challenging to make. It requires less technical training, therefore potentially more approachable. It can have a fresh, expressive, youthful feeling to it. It invites the viewer to bring their own interpretations to the work. No recognizable subject also conveniently means no controversial subjects. Great for corporations. Gotta keep that one in the back of my mind. There's still plenty of room for making a unique style for artists to market. Also, it can often be made quickly, and lastly, it can often be made large. Quickly and large. I think these are particularly important pros because whether we want to admit it or not, most paintings are made and used to decorate rooms. Which brings me to the cons. Additional disclaimer here, I'm not taking shots at anybody. These are just my opinions. Take it or leave it as you want. First, abstract art doesn't require the artist to really say anything. Next, there is no next. That's it. That's my only criticism of abstract art. A lot of pros, only one con. I think that's fair. People often try to guess the higher meaning of what the artist meant when they made a specific mark. Well, with a lot of abstract paintings, I get the impression that the artist was likely thinking, I could make a lot of these, and they'll sell. Well, there you have it, my case for abstract expressionism. Was I fair? Did I have some good points? Or was I completely wrong? It wouldn't be the first time that I've been wrong. Check out my other videos if you want to learn more about making art, my art specifically, or about me living here in Seoul, South Korea. Don't forget to like and subscribe also because I'm just getting started on this channel. Till next time, keep making that art. Adios.